Hi, everybody. Hi, Cara. Hi, Brandi.
Hello.
Hello.
I can hear your little puppy dog.
Oh yeah,
Um,
she's trying to get out to my grandson.
oh, well, oh my goodness. We have a really great night of ghost stories tonight. And Kit, hi. Kit is here. I'm going to throw this over to Cara right now, and she'll set you guys up with what we're going to do tonight.
Hello, everybody. One of the greatest, or most haunted little towns in America is Alton, Illinois. It has a rich but dark history. And honestly, I lived in Illinois, the majority of my life, but most of it in Chicago. I didn't even know that Alton, Illinois existed. Me, as someone who loves the paranormal, until about 20 some years ago when I moved down to the area. But we're going to be talking about some of the spookiest haunts, and we've got myths, we've got legends, we have the whole gamut tonight. And Brandi is going to be kicking it off with a very fun and exciting story. So I'm going to send it over to Brandi. Hi, Brandi.
Hello. I'm not going to say it's a fun story. It's by no means fun, but interesting.
I shouldn't
So,
I shouldn't say fun. I should say that it's loaded with just the drama that you feel from a paranormal, you know, uh, uh,
yes. Yes.
experience. It would be fun for someone who enjoys going and seeing paranormal things and seeing things happen. Let's put it
Yeah.
that way. The story itself's dark.
Yeah, the story itself is very dark. So, the one I'm going to be kicking this live episode off with is called it's the Alton Prison. So, the Alton Prison was the first state prison in Illinois, and it was opened in 1833. Now, when it was first opened, it was a very grim place. So, today's standards, our prisons are like five-star hotels compared to this prison. And this prison was plagued by rats and disease. Um, in 1847, a social reformer known as Dorothea Dix visited the prison and declared that it was unfit for habitation, even by criminals. That it was the worst conditions she had ever seen. Despite her claiming this, they still kept prisoners there. So it was used during the Civil War to be where they housed Confederate prisoners. So these poor soldiers or prisoners, whatever you want to label them as, would be housed as they would put as many as 2,000 inmates from all over the South into this small, tiny little prison. And it was not meant for this many people. By no means, not even close. They was basically stacking on top of each other. Now add in the rats and the infestations of diseases and the fact that they're going to the bathroom on top of each other, lack of clothing, lack of basic necessities. It was horrendous. They would sleep three to a bed. And we're talking like small little cot beds, not like queen size beds here. These are small little tiny cots. Now, it did not take long before a smallpox
I'm
outbreak
sorry, but
spread
I can't help you
throughout
quite
this
yet.
prison. And, smallpox is very contagious. It's not something that, one or two people might get. The whole prison became a major outbreak for it. It got to the point that while it was raging, the epidemic was raging, they was having as many as 5 deaths a day, and that's only the recorded deaths. So it's once it took hold, there's just no way to stop it in these conditions. You couldn't segregate the sick ones out because they're three to a bed here. They're on top of each other. Finally they demanded that the dead be removed out because they was just like piling to the side of the prison. They just take the bodies out, dump them to the side, and leave them, which did not promote stopping the disease because, that doesn't stop the spread at all. And they purchased a small island to do this, to get rid of the bodies with. And the island was originally named the Sunflower Island. It was later changed to the Smallpox Island because this is where they took all these Confederate soldiers who had died from smallpox in this prison, and they would send them to this island. Now, they didn't just send the dead ones there. They started sending the live ones who were infected with smallpox to this island as well. And they had like these little bitty army tents kind of set up and little cots, and they would just send them there into isolation. And it was basically, you're going there and it's a one-way trip. If you're being sent to this island, you're not coming back off this island. So that is just to think that, you first are sent to a prison where it is horrendous conditions. Then to get sick with a disease that you're seeing everybody else just dying from, and knowing that if they ship you off to this island, you are for sure this is a death sentence. You will not come back from this. It just is mind-boggling to me. Now, I'm glossing over a lot of the carnage. Y'all know me. I don't try to give you all the gross stories behind it. But they reported by the end of 1963, the winter of 1963, by the end of it, in a one-year run, okay, the reported deaths were 5,000 deaths. And I again state reported deaths. Let's just take the fact that back then they don't technically keep track of deaths as accurately as we do nowadays. So they estimate that it can be as much as 10,000. But we don't know for sure.
That's crazy. Hey, there were some of them that, got swept under the rug, so to speak, I'm sure.
Yes. Yeah. So, and like I said, they didn't want their Confederate soldiers, they're prisoners. They don't care what happened to these prisoners as long as they was not running free, basically. So nobody really kept track. There is a monument next to the little smallpox hospital that they had on the island, which was a little tent. It wasn't a hospital. It was just a tent. And there is a gravesite of 260 Confederate prisoners that are buried just near that little bitty tent that they know of. But that doesn't mean that's all of them that's there. That's just the ones that were actually documented. They know that there was many more that was sent there to die that never came back off the island. Another little fact that some people might find interest about this island is that it was also where the infamous Lincoln Shields duel of 1842 took place. Of course, this was before it became Smallpox Island, but just, for people who are interested. So as far as the haunting of these areas, where the old prison was, there are reports from people that claim that they have seen soldiers still lingering around there wearing rags and just clothes falling off of them. They look like skeletons, like not just bones, but people that are so skinny that they look like walking skeletons. They can hear cries of pain and suffering. There is horrible smells that they can smell, like of rotting flesh and just terrible smells from there. And then when you go to the island, there is a feeling of dread, of uneasiness when you go there. So no apparitions as far as seeing things. It's more of a feeling when you're there. And I'm sure Debbie could enlighten us more on what that's called. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but
well, when they're there, it's especially empaths are just going to get that feel of dread and suffering, and maybe start seeing things or hearing cries and things like that. This is such a populated small area with a lot of deaths. There's going to be all kinds of paranormal activity there, and probably some energy as well imprinted in, as well as maybe some spirits still haunting it. So this is amazing how, in our history we had these things happen. That was way too many people in one place. It's just unthinkable.
Yeah.
It makes
And
me wonder if that's why the whole town itself is haunted.
and it might be because just in my research of this, there was a lot of Civil War time in that whole area of Alton, not just around the prison, but a lot of deaths during the Civil War in that general area. A lot of unmarked graves, not just for the Confederates, but also for the Union in that general area. But yeah, just from this prison alone, if you think about it, they documented up to 5,000, and they're estimating closer to 10,000 deaths just in the year of 1863. Sorry, not 1863. That is just in 1 year because of the smallpox epidemic. And then but if you also think about it, before smallpox hit, these people were plagued by things such as scurvy and dysentery, and so they wasn't healthy anyways when the smallpox ransacked that prison. They didn't have a fighting chance. So that's a lot of deaths in just 1 year for a prison. And then the island that they were sent to, I want you all to think about this. This is a small island in the middle of Mississippi River.
No, don't.
It's not like a
Did I
big
lose you guys?
island you'd see in the ocean. No, you're still there, Cara. So it's not a big island. Think about it. Just how many bodies are crammed into this small area.
Do you think that they put some in the water or floated them
I
downstream?
would
or-
almost, if they did not do that, I would almost imagine the ones that was sent there that were still alive might have even tried to escape and lost their lives to the undercurrents of the Missouri or Mississippi River. I would not be surprised by that in the least. Or
You
by
wonder how many are burned too.
yeah, that too. Yeah. Because by what I've read, it wasn't like there was guards there on that island guarding them. They kind of dumped them off on the island with no food, no clothing, no shelter besides that little tent, and they was just left there to die.
Wow, it's terrible.
I also don't think if you think about how many actually died, they were listed as smallpox deaths. So if you look at the totality of how many people died, soldiers died during the Civil War, they were not listed as Civil War deaths. They were listed as smallpox deaths.
Yes. Yeah.
So it just shows the carnage. And smallpox, we our generation, but the three of us, our generations, didn't have to deal with smallpox because smallpox was eradicated in the United States, eons ago. I was one of the last babies who got a smallpox vaccine. No, that was the other one. Polio vaccine. The smallpox I didn't get because I was too young. They weren't doing them anymore. But now you have monkeypox going on. It's like it's a it's a similar disease, but it's very frightening.
Yeah.
That we've got epidemics like that.
Falling into a conspiracy theory here, we cannot say that smallpox has been eradicated because they have the live virus. They still keep it. The government has control of the virus still. It's not eradicated. It's still there.
Well, I mean, it's eradicated here. We don't have cases or epidemics here.
It's not in the common population, but it's not dead. It's not died out. It's still
no, because there are cases. There are cases in other countries. There's just not here, and it's not like, and people don't usually die from it anymore because they know what it is.
Yeah, that's a big difference there too. We can treat it now.
Exactly. It's treatable. Back then, if they had just had a monicum of antibiotics and things and different things that we have today, and oxygen and things like that, they may well have not lost that many soldiers.
Well, that and not keeping them all sleeping three to a bed while there's an outbreak going on would have helped too.
Yeah. That's just that's so insane to me. I can't even wrap my head around it, really. But I honestly, go ahead.
I do want to I just did a fact check. Here I am, like social media. Smallpox, the last natural occurring case was in 1977, and so it has been declared eradicated.
Yeah. Yeah,
I,
it's
see,
eradicated for the general populace. They just still have the disease in
yeah,
labs. Well, they need it. They need
CDC
it in
and
case they do. In case we do have an outbreak again, they do need it so that they can make the vaccines again.
Right.
And mass produce.
yeah, that's my only argument is that it's eradicated in the population, but it still exists. It's not gone.
It's
We
like
just
a
have control of
sci-fi,
it.
a sci-fi movie when when the killer bees got out of the lab and came up and through Texas and all this crazy
Yeah.
stuff. You're
Oh,
like, come
yeah.
on,
Yep.
get these labs under control. Don't put them where there's an earthquake or anything like that. Oh my
Exactly.
gosh.
Well,
Well,
and
that's
now
a crazy story.
it is. And and that's why it leads me to believe, the McPike mansion. We're going to go into this because Henry Guest McPike uh, he was a former mayor of Alton. The house is beautiful. It's an Italian design. It's, I mean, fabulous. The staircase is wild. It has two staircases. When you walk into the foyer, it's got two staircases that round up, and then they go up the center, going up to the third floor. It's amazing. But Henry Guest McPike, after his first wife died, uh, and left him with his children, he built this house. And like I said, he was a mayor of Alton. He was actually very close friends with none other than Abraham Lincoln. And it was originally on 15 acres. Of course, the land was, subsequently, partitioned off because it's in town. But it has 16 rooms. And the crazy thing about it is it has 11, get this, 11 marble fireplaces in there. And when he married his second wife, in I believe it was 1869 when the house was completed, um, she moved in. Of course, she was helping raise those children, and then they eventually divorced, and he moved on to a third wife, Nellie, who they had a child, Katie, who died at, either very young or at birth. And then they had a daughter, Moreland, um, who actually lived to be 97 years old. But when he died in 1910, now no hauntings or anything were spoke about or anything by the McPike family. But when he sold the house, when he died in 1910, Nellie and Moreland decided to move in 1936 out to Colorado, and they sold the house 2 years later. And that's where Peter, I want to pronounce this right, Leishinger, and his family moved in. And his stepsons, who were, a little older, teens and stuff, they weren't children, they started noticing strange events in the house. Now, no children lived in the house because the stepsons were older, but they heard voices of children and laughter and running and different things moving. And when their stepfather died in 1949, he died pretty young. He died at the age of 59. The family stayed about another decade, but they left, and then the house was completely, I don't know why, but the house was completely abandoned for 40 years until the current owners bought it in 1994. It was the Ludkeys, I think is how you pronounce it. And they wanted to renovate the house, and they wanted to make a nice bed and breakfast because of the history of the house. It's rumored that Abraham Lincoln visited him and might possibly have stayed there. And that's when things started getting weird for them. About 6 weeks in, she was gardening, and she happened to look up, and in the window inside the house, she saw an apparition of a man staring at her, and then he quickly vanished, like faded away. Well, she decided to do some research on the house, and much to her shock and awe, she came across a picture of the original owner. I'm not original owner, I'm sorry, the second owner, and he was dressed in the exact same clothes that she saw in the
That
in the window. Yeah.
that's so cool. That is so cool. I would love that.
So Peter is actually hanging out at the house apparently. Um, but then things started picking up, and started getting a little more, awkward. Things would be moved, and she she would feel things. They had lights and orbs that would show up and go around, and they've actually been caught on photos. Footsteps are heard pacing back and forth like a mad pace. Uh, but they've had vanishing things have just vanished from the house, objects. No one's there, and things just have gone missing. And then there is an invisible presence that is felt um, in the basement, in the wine cellar, and that's where most of the activity takes place. Actually, it's you're walking through this basement, this wine cellar, and all of a sudden, a fog appears out of nowhere, a mist, and it follows you around while you're going through this basement. And many people have witnessed this, not just one person, not just the owners. Several people have witnessed this, on top of witnessing people in the upper windows of the house. So that's, that's very creepy in itself. But another weird thing is there's a big metal door that is very cumbersome down in the basement. And the door moves on its own, and the bottom of it scrapes across the concrete of the basement. And yeah,
It's so creepy.
it
And
is.
it's funny because I've seen basement like that, and I was that had the metal door in there, and the ectoplasm, which can be a lot of times when you see ectoplasm in pictures, old pictures and things like that, it looks thick and things like that, and sometimes it was really cheesecloth, but can be very misty. I've seen that before, and that's that they're bringing forth this energy, and yeah, you're being followed, and but I don't know why it is, but they seem to like that comfort of being in the basements and in the corners of the basement, and sometimes up on the walls. We can catch them up there. So that's goes right on how it should go in that house.
Yeah, and they have brought in many psychics, many mediums, and every one of them concur that because they've done a lot of paranormal investigations. A lot of them, they all concur that the spirits of the past inhabitants are present in the house, including one of them specifically said, including a servant by the name of Sarah Wells up in the servants' quarters, up on the top floor. They can her perfume. It was a lilac perfume, can be smelled all over the servants' quarters.
Wow.
And now I don't know the reason, and I don't know if the owners um, just gave up on renovations or what, but it is now abandoned again. And I'm not. I'm assuming that they still own it. I couldn't find any records of them selling it,
Uh-huh.
but it has become it has gone down and is in worse shape now than it was when they bought it,
Oh no.
which is sad because it should be historically, you know, renovated or restored
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's a part of Illinois history with Abe Lincoln, you know.
Right.
But it's sad, and it's such a beautiful house. But
Would you live there, Kara? Would you live there?
I think I would, especially if Abe Lincoln came to visit every once in a while. I'd have some questions for him.
I think it's awesome, but there is a lot of paranormal activity. It takes a lot uh, for me. spirits live in a place for quite a while, those are the ones that are able to transport uh, items, or take them and use them and bring them back or take them somewhere else. And I've experienced that. I think there's a lot of people out there that have, when you know that something was there on the table and you can't find it, and 2 days later it's right back where it was, or even an hour later it's back where it was.
Has
So that
happened to
takes
me my whole life.
a Right. I always tell them, when you're finished with it, could you bring it back? Unless I needed it right away. And I said, I need that like right now. So get it back here. It'll come back. But that takes a lot of energy. So they have a lot going on in that house, from different, time periods and things like that. That's a shame because look at how beautiful it is. It's
Oh yeah,
gorgeous.
you should see the pictures of the inside. If I had thought about it, I would have had you pull up the pictures of the grand staircase. I mean, it's it's amazing. It's just they round on each side of this, huge foyer and go up, and then in the center of it you see the angle of the stairs of this large staircase that goes up to the third floor. Um and it's just absolutely, breathtaking. But I will tell you, I think the little girl's ghost, or the children's ghost, the laughter, I thought about it. The only child that died in that house was that infant Katie, and there's no record of how old she was when she died. She could have been a toddler. She could have been a little older, 4 or 5, but she died young. Maybe she's laughing in the house,
So that could be.
you
Yeah.
know. But Brandi, I know you have a very interesting story that goes along with the incredible history of Alton.
Yes, I do. And I apologize because the dogs are barking. They're trying to get to my grandson.
Oh.
They want to play in the hallway. So the next story I have for you all is, it's not a haunting. It is more of a legend passed down by the Illinois Native Americans, and it is called the Paiasa bird. And their definition, or the meaning of it from the Native Americans, was it is a bird that devours men. Now, the first time this bird was ever mentioned in any document, written documents that we can go back to, was in 1673. And it was by Father Jacques, or Jacques, I cannot speak French, sorry guys, Marquette. And he was recording the famous journey down the Mississippi River with Lewis Joliet, so Lewis and Clark. They described the Paiasa as a bird-like monster painted high on the bluffs along the Mississippi, near what is now the city of Alton. According to the diary that he wrote this in, it was as large as a calf, with antlers like a deer, red eyes, and a beard like a tiger's, with a face of a man. Its body was covered with green, red, and black scales, and a tail so long it passed around the body, over the head, and between the legs. Now, Debbie has been so kind to find an image of this. Now, I will point out that the image that she is sharing with us is not the original image, because that faded over time with just normal wear and tear of wind and sand and rain and ice. So they repainted it. So this isn't the original one that was seen back in 1673, but it is a close approximation of what it did look like. Now, the story behind this is that long time ago, before 1673, of course, the Native Americans had been plagued by this beast for many years, and it was said that it was powerful enough to carry off a full-grown deer. Now, according to legends, hundreds of warriors had tried to kill this beast, but all of them had failed. So it continued to destroy whole villages until Chief, forgive me if I pronounce this wrong, Otoga, a chief renowned even amongst his people and neighboring tribes, separated from his tribe and fasted for a whole moon cycle. So for a whole month he fasted And while he was fasting, he was visited by the Great Spirit. Now, for those who are not Native Americans or doesn't understand, the Great Spirit to them is similar to God to us. So it's a spirit that comes to them, and it's their grandfather. It's the Great Spirit. A lot of tribes believe in it. Now, this person, the chief, was visited by the Great Spirit, who directed him to gather up 20 warriors and give them all a bow with poisoned arrows. And then they had to wait in a designated spot upon the bluffs to ambush this creature. So the chief stood out on this open bluff as bait for this creature, and when it noticed him and came down to carry him away, all the warriors that had been hidden in the bushes around him released a barrage of all these poisoned arrows, and the creature shrieked and flew out over the Mississippi River, crashing dead into the river and disappearing into the water. In 1698, records indicated the original paintings of the Piasa bird had nearly disappeared. So, like I was saying, the picture that Debbie has shown us was repainted in 1990. So, it's definitely more recent. But the belief behind this bird, for anyone that is not Native American and people that try to speculate on what they were seeing, because a lot of believe that, if they're drawing these images, then apparently there was something at that point in time that resembled that. It wasn't just something born out of their imaginations. So a lot of people think that it was probably a creature that had existed from prehistoric times, and that was the last one, and that had been living in the caves that are around that cliff face. Now, there's no proof of this. Of course, no scientific proof whatsoever, but that is one of the theories behind this. Another theory is that this beast laid many eggs in these caves, and that at any time they can hatch, and we'll have more of these beasts flying around. I'm not sure how I feel about that. But Alton has accepted their history with this legend, and a lot of their schools carry this as their mascot. So you'll see this symbol on a lot of things, on their mascots, on buildings, including one that I do believe Cara is going to be covering, which is the Piasa Masons, I do believe.
That's a scary legend. If
It is.
a long time ago, there was a movie called Gargoyle. In that one, I watched over and over and over and over again. And the gargoyles, the last male and female, had eggs in a cave. And that was so scary. And yeah, they were all going to hatch, and we're going to have gargoyles all over the United States. So I can see where that was a scary thing.
Well,
That's amazing that it had the relief on the side of a hill, was it?
it was a cliff face over where,
Oh,
if you're
wow.
on the Missouri River, you can see it on a cliff face.
Wow, that's
So,
fantastic.
yep.
Yeah.
So that's Go ahead.
Oh, it makes me wonder if and I think, I'm not sure, but I think it might be pronounced Piazza.
Nope, it is pronounced Piasa.
That is weird. Oh, that's the Native American pronunciation.
It's Native
probably.
American. Yep, I looked it up.
Yeah.
It's Piasa.
That's crazy. Well, I wonder if the Masonic Lodge took its name from there.
I would not be surprised, because, like I said, Alton has embraced it as their mascot for schools, their logos on a lot of buildings. So I would not be surprised if the Masons did accept that as an emblem for their building, for that area.
Yeah, and and there are two different Masonic lodges. There's the Franklin Masonic Lodge and the Piasa Masonic Lodge, located by Alton. And the Piasa is, I don't think they have a grasp or a knowledge of who the ghosts might be, but there are, occurrences of orbs and and in pictures and myths. Like, you can't when being from a Masonic family, I can tell you that during the time that the Bible is open on the altar, you're not allowed to take pictures, but you can take pictures at once the Bible is closed. So you can but people have taken pictures and have found strange things, or maybe a little mist or anything in there. and sounds. I know they're old buildings, but um, they're kind of loaded with a like energy, and no one has said that it's anything bad. In the Franklin Masonic Lodge, now that one they do confirm and know. They don't know his name, but a Confederate soldier actually spoke. He hangs out in the basement, and he actually spoke to a psychic medium and asked her over and over again, why won't they help me? Now, this Confederate soldier is believed to have been a Mason in life. And, it's possible that he could have died during the smallpox outbreak, or something. Um, and is feeling a connection to his fellow brothers in the Masonic Lodge, and wants them to help him in some way. However, they do not know how he wants them to do that. Maybe he doesn't even realize that he's dead. Maybe that's why he's still crying out for help. But it's possible that he could have been one of the victims of the smallpox, and with being dumped on the island, maybe he felt abandoned, and maybe now he's lingering in the lodge, hoping that someone will help him. It's quite possible.
Very possible.
Oh yeah. I mean, I could definitely see that. But yeah, I mean, it's just the ghosts in the Masonic Lodge. I mean, quite honestly, I've been in so many Masonic lodges, over the years, because my dad was a Mason, my grandfather was amazing, just generational. And I was in Rainbow, and those lodges, you can feel energy there, especially
Oh,
in the
yeah.
older buildings. I would be interested in going to I know one of them is no longer Franklin Lodge is no longer a Masonic lodge. I believe or at least the building is no longer used. But it'd be interesting to go in there and just feel the energy, especially in the meeting room, especially in the basements. You know, that's something that is very interesting and very profound.
I think it would be really great to be able to go into a lot of them. The architecture is beautiful. There's so many things that you could probably pick up energy on some of the work that they did, and it's beautiful anyway. But with the longevity and all the people that always gathered there and all of that, I think there would be a lot of ghosts that would come back and hang out in their lodge.
Yeah, I can honestly, I mean, we'll have to one time we'll have to talk about the Shriners Temple in the Scottish Rite in Chicago. That had some ominous things in it, and I spent many a day in that place. But yeah, but Brandi, you've got another one. Is it your school?
Yes, it is the Milton Schoolhouse. So, this schoolhouse was built in 1904, and it was up and running successfully until it officially closed in 1986. So, 82 years it was a school. Now, it served as the main school in Alton until it closed. And after it was shut down, it became a factory for the Intaglio design, which I do believe is a glass factory. They design glass products. Since then, other businesses have taken up residence in this building. And currently, I do believe it is not being used for anything. I could be wrong. I couldn't find anything currently being housed there. But, so the story of it is that there is a haunting there that started while it was still a school. And it is a story of a little girl named Mary. Now, it started circulating back in the early 50s. And the thing was one day after school, Mary was finishing up a seasonal bulletin for her classroom, while everyone else was finished or had already left the building for the day. And as the sun was starting to go down, she realized that she was going to be caught out past her curfew at home and wanted to get home before her mother could worry about her. So as she was skipping down the stairs towards the gymnasium doors, she heard a noise behind her. And the next day, she was found in the girls' locker room, battered and covered with blood, and all her clothes and everything were all tore up. But she couldn't say what had happened to her. So the last thing she remembered was she heard a noise behind her. Now, since then, there has been many reports of footsteps being heard, things missing and reappearing in offices. And one man has even believed that he had seen a figure of a young girl. But no one knows what happened to poor Mary. It could have been a ghostly apparition, or it could have just been some predator hiding out in the school and took their advantage of poor Mary. We don't know. So, makes you question, if it wasn't just a predator, why is everybody else still reporting hearing footsteps, and why are things appearing and disappearing? And what was this man who reportedly seen a figure of a young girl, and that was after it was no longer a school that he reported seeing this. So, and what caused the initial haunting? Because there's no reported cases of any traumatic experience happening there prior to Mary being attacked.
Brandi, we know that there are some spirits that manifest that can touch, push, assault people. There's a lot of things where people think, oh, they just pull their hair, or they, do things like that. But there's a lot of ones that do get bruises and injuries from some entities. So.
Oh yeah, very true. But at the same time, it could have also been just a human person. We don't know, because she has no memory after the noise behind her.
So sad.
But like I said, since that happened to her, there's been other reports of just hearing footsteps in an empty building, things missing and reappearing in certain places, and the figure of a young girl after it was no longer a school, and there shouldn't have been a young girl there. So, there is reports that would lead you to thinking it was paranormal, but it also makes you wonder what brought on the paranormal activity in this school.
Right.
It's very, it leads you, again, it goes back to, could it be the thousands of soldiers who died there haunting various areas of the town?
Also, if they were present on the property, and if anything happened on the property and then the building's built, they can have some things start happening, and
Right.
and there's a lot of looky-loo spirits. They wander in and sometimes stay, sometimes they wander out.
Yeah, and you never know how many battlefields are now home to buildings. They didn't. It's not like they mapped out a battlefield in the 1860s and said, okay, this is where we had our battle.
Yeah.
So you just never know what different parts of the town were affected.
True.
Oh yeah.
But that leads us into like the Alton City Cemetery. There's several cemeteries in Alton, but the city cemetery is one of the actual oldest cemeteries in Illinois. I think technically it's the third oldest, but some say it is the oldest because they do have a recorded burial in the 1830s. But they have had some strange things, and one of the craziest things that freaks me out is that there's a lot of mausoleums and things there, especially in the older cemeteries. They had mausoleums and crypts and things, and they discovered that several of the crypts had been opened and the bodies were just gone. And the homeless people had set up shop in these crypts. And but no one knows who took the bodies, who actually opened the crypt, and they've never found these bodies or the caskets or anything. So it has that element, and you wonder if a lot of the orbs and the different myths and things that are seen at this cemetery have something to do with those crypts. You know, um, One of the saddest ghosts that you'll see there is of this beautiful little girl, Lucy Haskell. Um, she was 9 years old and she was killed during a diphtheria outbreak. And she is often seen more by children, mostly by children, but she's playful and curious, and she hangs out by her family's crypt. It's the Hayner Haskell Monument. She hangs out there and has been seen, playing with other children. Well, the children have seen her, let's put it that way. Um, and children have talked about playing with this little girl, and the adults are like, I don't see anything, but the children do. Like, they communicate with her, which children do have that natural ability, um, quite often to feel or to sense or to even speak to other children, that are passed on. Um, so she's seen there. She's also seen a little bit near Elijah P. Lovejoy's monument, and his monument is it's beautiful. It's an angel with wings and things. Um, he's also seen around too, but he's got a very tragic story. He was an abolitionist, and he owned a newspaper, and and in his religious beliefs, he was completely against slavery, and he wrote about the abolitionist movement, and he actually promoted it, and a mob of pro-slavery monsters, on November 7th, 1837, showed up, where, his printing press was. And he was shot by a shotgun blast and killed while he was defending, what they said was his beloved printing press, because that's how he got the word out to people about what was going on. And his monument wasn't erected until 60 years after his death. As a matter of fact, on the 60th anniversary, it was unveiled. And he is seen wandering around his monument, melancholy and kind of a sad figure, maybe it's because of how he died, or maybe he doesn't realize that the work he did did help, the abolitionist movement. But little Lucy is also seen around his monument too. Maybe she's befriended him. I'm not sure. But they are two of the big ghosts. Another one that's interesting, though, is a woman who is dressed all in black, and she roams the halls of the Grandview Mausoleum. Now, that was a public mausoleum for a long time, but it is now closed to the public. You cannot go in it. However, she is seen by caretakers and workers and things. She is seen inside this mausoleum roaming the halls. And no one knows who she is or why she's there, But it's kind of spooky that she doesn't leave this mausoleum,
I think it's great that so many people have seen her. It just gives validation that something's, there.
Yeah. I tried to look up and find out, and she's dressed all in black. I was trying to find out if they had a period of, the clothing period or anything, but I didn't quite find anything on that. I guess we'll have to go there ourselves and check it out. But
Oh, that'd be fun.
the
She may have been in mourning, maybe a widow.
yeah, yeah, and maybe longing for, maybe she wasn't buried with her spouse or
Well,
child or something.
yeah, a lot of times, if somebody goes and visits the graves or, the crypt or whatever, and they're imprinting that energy of doing this, especially there were a lot of people, of course, that, you know, probably visited more than once a year. They may have visited every day and really being sad, and they're putting that energy out there into the space. And this could be what they're seeing also. It's that person kept going and put a lot of sorrow into, the visits, that it can be just imprinted there, and that's what they're seeing. But
Yeah.
hopefully they have talked to her, or they've, or she's done something different. Then that she's a spirit that is active.
Well, I will
So
say that
interesting.
well, there's another section of the cemetery that has a lot of activity, and there's actually a lot of EVPs and photos that have documented the activity. Um,
Cool.
but there's a place called the Soldiers section, and I believe it's mostly Confederate soldiers. And there was a gentleman who was doing some paranormal investigations, and while he was in the Soldiers section on a super hot day, I mean, you know how hot it gets here. On a super hot day, there was a cold spot that was so cold that it chilled him to the bone, and it left as quickly as it came. And it was just one spot in this section. And after he had met with his tour guide and talked to him, and the tour guide was doing some EVPs, and they were asking questions and stuff. He stayed and did some more EVPs and took some more photos himself. And when he went through the audio, when his tour guide was talking and asking questions, someone was answering, but they couldn't decipher what they were saying.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was talking and asking questions alone with the EVPs, there were wails and moans in the background. And he was all by himself on this EVP. And I'm thinking, could some of these soldiers have been smallpox victims before they threw them on the smallpox island? Could there be some that died, horrendous in the prison, or were there Union soldiers during one of the battles there that died and were buried? Because a lot of these are also unmarked graves. There are some that are marked, some that aren't.
Right.
But the photos, he took photos and had orbs and mists and things that were not there seen on the naked eye,
Wow.
and yeah, so he truly believed that what he was experiencing was a haunting, especially based on the EVPs.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's amazing that some of them are so clear, and you can absolutely know that they're giving the answers and communicating. So that's great. We all love the good spirit photography and the EVPs.
Oh yeah, this and I would love to, visit. Obviously, this cemetery is open to the public. The only, like I said, you can't go into that mausoleum unless you have to get special permission. But I would like to go in there. I'd like to do an EVP walking through the halls of that mausoleum and asking for the woman in black to talk to me. Who is she?
Yeah.
What's going on? Who's she looking for, or what is she? Why is she wandering?
Hmm.
It would be an interesting thing. What do you think, Brandi?
I definitely agree.
That'd be so fun. All that stuff is fun.
We could take 2 weeks more to cover what is going on in Alton. I mean, there are literally over 35 documented hauntings in this small town. That's why it's the most haunted small town in America. You know, because it's not a big city or anything like that. Ah,
Look
there's
what
my
I
book.
did.
Yay.
You want to tell everybody about it?
Yes, this is my first book that I wrote and published back in April. It's The Shadows of Satan, Terror in the Mountains. Believe me, there's no Satan in it. It is it is a supernatural suspense story with lots of twists and turns. You don't know what is real, what is imagined, or what is paranormal. And the ending you will not see coming.
And
But
where can they get it?
they can get it on Amazon. They can get it on oh, thank you, Kit. That you can get it on Amazon. You can get it on Barnes and Noble online. It's actually being carried and ordered through a lot of smaller bookstores in some major cities. Chicago uh, carries it in some of the LGBTQ stores. But it's really intriguing, and it it keeps you guessing throughout the whole book. It really keeps you guessing. But that's not just all what we have going on, though. We have our past lives of Deborah O'Hara. We have the Portals Through Time, which is our first book together, and that is on Amazon and Barnes and Noble as well. And our second book is the past lives of Deborah O'Hara, Karma at Karnak Court. And we're so excited that we are in the middle of book 3, which is going to be amazing. And
Yes.
it's our books are the present is always set in the city of Chicago, but in book 3, the past, we're going back to Chicago during the Great World's Fair of 1893. We will not tell you why, but just think about what kind of things happened there. And so we are so excited to have 2 of our books completed and working on the third. And we're going to have a lot of twists and turns and fun things that are coming up in the next 2 books that you guys will not believe. It's so fun and exciting. And it's a pleasure working day to day with Brandi and Debbie and the 3 of us. It's just this amazing team that you're blessed with. It's a true blessing to have
We
2 amazing, strong women.
This was like, the other side helped put us together. It's just
Yes,
the way things fell into place was just, uh, it was crazy, and it was just all perfect. And not only we're working on book 3, we already have ideas for probably 15 books or more.
oh
And
yes.
we're going to be really getting them out to you guys really pretty fast. So we'll be letting you know all about it. And again, hop over to Amazon and put in the past lives of Deborah O'Hara, and all the books will come in, and you can listen, or you can read it on like Kindle. And if you have Kindle Unlimited, please go ahead and read it. And if you do get it, please leave us a review. And
Yes, I would love to have a review on my first book too. It's really important to get those reviews out there for us.
so we can't talk about everything, but such good, great, and wonderful things are coming in with this book series, and we just can't wait to. I know our hearts are so in book 3. Oh my goodness, it's going to be so great. And we'll talk later about all the interesting and important things that we're showcasing in our books as well. But we're getting close to the time to go. We got another minute, Kara.
Well, just remember our books are also all inclusive. We
That's right.
we bring in people from all walks of life. I myself am a lesbian writer. Debbie and Brandi are both strong allies for the community, and we want to bring forth just, wonderful characters that you can actually invest in.
Right. And if you look at the back of our newest books, you will see that Brandy made us a wonderful little mascot. And do you want, Brandy, are you there? Can you tell everybody about that?
I decided to make a little hummingbird that is decorated with a metallic rainbow chrome kind of appearance to it to represent, the all walks of life. And also because I consider Debbie my little hummingbird. She's my little messenger. So it represented both Debbie and Cara. Um, and I thought it truly fit both of them very well.
It's
So,
so cute. So we have lots of great
Yes.
things with these books, and as well as helping vision impaired and um, people with reading disabilities and all kinds of things like showcasing strong women and things like that. We are trying to bring the best of the best into our books, and they're so entertaining. I do grab the book once in a while and read my favorite chapters, but you'll find all these great people, these characters that we brought in. I want to tell you guys, Kara is fantastic with history. And so when we go in this time traveling book and we go places, most of everything that you have read about the historical part of it is going to be correct. So, yeah, we have so many good things in here. But it's
I
time to
love it.
sign off.
Yes, it is, and we have enjoyed having you guys. We are so happy to be back and sharing fun and exciting history and myths and legends and ghosts and goblins and
Right. Also with Sandra D, and she couldn't make it tonight, so hopefully next week she'll be with us. We have the four of us that we get to bring in our thoughts and our stories and our laughter and all that spooky stuff that comes with our shows. So please be with us next week. And Kara, do we know what we're going to be doing yet, or we're going to think about it?
I think we're going to think about it because there were so many Alton stories. Maybe we'll do another Alton story, or maybe we will hit on maybe some of the spooky Masonic temples and Shriners temples around the country. We'll see, but keep it in mind. We might bring you some more great Alton stories from there and the surrounding areas.
Okay, you guys, it's time to go. And we thank you so much for watching and sharing the show. And please go to Psychic Fixes and our Ghost Stories Facebook page and like them, follow us, and see some of the things that we post. All right, you guys, we're going to say goodbye.
my dogs are saying